Hey guys, tonight we're going to do something a little strange. We're going to tuck ourselves right into the frostbitten grass of the Ice Age and ask, so, what's for dinner? Spoiler, it's probably not much. The wind cuts like a knife, and you're wrapped in furs that still smell very much like the animal they used to belong to. The air feels so raw and sharp you can almost taste the glaciers drifting in from nowhere. If you've ever thought your apartment's heating bill was brutal, trust me, out here you'd give anything for a broken radiator. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes, and that's not me exaggerating. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me where and when you're listening from. I love seeing the little constellation of places we're all connected through. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes in the half-light of dawn, and the cold has already gnawed its way into your bones. You can see your breath puff out in a little ghostly cloud, which is comforting and terrifying all at once, because it means you're alive, but only barely. The fur you've been sleeping under is damp where your breath froze against it during the night. When you roll over, your hip aches from lying on bare, frozen earth. This is what bed looks like: ground, skin, and a thin barrier of hide that still reeks faintly of mammoth fat. There's movement beside you, your little cluster of companions stirring, coughing softly, the sound carried off into the open air. You've been with them so long you know who's awake just by the rhythm of their breaths. And when someone stretches, the sound of their joints cracking feels louder than it should, bouncing through the silence of a land that hasn't learned how to be noisy yet. Your stomach knots with hunger before you've even stood up. It's the kind of hunger that's been with you for days, sometimes weeks, always dull, always gnawing. Every morning starts the same way, with a question no one dares ask aloud. Will we find food before the sun goes down? You step out from the bundle of bodies, the icy air biting your face immediately, and you scan the horizon. The world looks endless, but not generous. White, gray, black, snow, stone, shadow. You remember yesterday's march. You trudged for hours across frozen mud, feet blistered and raw, only to find a stream that was frozen solid, with a few bleak, bitter berries clinging stubbornly to thorny bushes nearby. They were sour, almost inedible, but you ate them anyway. Everyone did, and you pretended it helped. Now, this morning, you have to decide. Follow the faint tracks of reindeer seen days ago, or try the river again, in case some fish were trapped under the ice. The group looks at you like you might have an answer, but all you have are guesses. That's what leadership is here, guessing a little louder than everyone else. You tug the fur tighter around your shoulders and think about how warmth is both your greatest luxury and your most constant fear. Fire has been your lifeline for so long now, but it's a fragile gift. The embers from last night are still glowing faintly under the ashes. If they die out, you'll spend hours today trying to coax sparks from dry grass and stone. Your hands numb, your patience thinner than the hide stretched over your body. Fire feels almost like a god. You treat it with reverence, feed it carefully, guard it like a secret. And as you squat by the embers, cupping your hands around them, you remember the stories told by elders. That once, long ago, there were entire days without flame. Whole groups froze to death in the snow, huddled together in silent monuments to what it means to be human. It's not history written down, because who would write anything now? But you can hear the truth in the cracks of their voices, the way they spit into the dirt after telling it, as if spitting the memory out of themselves. The day stretches in front of you, endless. Your legs already ache from knowing how much you'll walk. Survival here is less about strength than endurance. You keep moving even when you want to collapse, because collapsing means the wolves will get to you before sleep does. Wolves, always circling, always watching. Sometimes you hear them at night howling across the plains. Sometimes you see them at the edge of camp, eyes glowing in the firelight. They're as hungry as you are, and in a twisted way, they're your mirrors. Someone mutters beside you, rubbing their arms. Maybe the spirits will give us luck today. Maybe the hunt will bring something back. You smile weakly because hope is as necessary as food, and just as scarce. The funny thing is, you can almost imagine explaining this to someone from the future. Like, yeah, you guys complain when your Wi-Fi drops for 2 minutes? Try surviving when even your own stomach has basically rage quit. Or, you think your boss breathing down your neck is bad? Try having an actual saber-toothed tiger doing it. Humor is the only insulation you've got sometimes. It doesn't warm your hands, but it keeps the dark thoughts from freezing your mind. By midday, you're trudging again. Snow crunches beneath your feet, and the rhythm of it becomes a kind of hypnotic chant. Step, crunch. Your nose stings, your lips are split, and every breath feels like swallowing knives. Around you, your group spreads out, eyes scanning constantly. Every broken twig, every patch of disturbed snow could mean food or danger. Hours pass. Hunger grows louder, becomes a voice in your head that won't shut up. You keep thinking of roasted meat, juices dripping, skin crisping over fire. Instead, your teeth chatter against the hollow silence of reality. Then you hear it, the faint snapping of branches somewhere ahead. Everyone freezes, eyes darting. Your heart hammers so hard you think the sound alone might scare off whatever it is. You creep forward, every sense sharpened. And there, hoof prints, reindeer, fresh, excitement sparks, and for a brief moment you forget how tired you are. The group moves together now, silent, purposeful. Spears clutched in hands that shake from cold and anticipation. You follow the prints until you see them. 3 reindeer grazing among the scraggly brush, their breath steaming in the air. Time stretches. Your grip tightens on the spear. The plan is simple if brutal. Surround, rush, bring one down before it bolts. You inhale, exhale, and suddenly you're moving, shouting, the others fanning out. The reindeer startle, their hooves drumming like thunder. You hurl the spear with all the strength left in your trembling arm. Finds its mark. The reindeer stumbles, cries out, and crashes to the ground. The others scatter, but no one cares. Relief floods you so strongly your knees buckle. Tonight you'll eat. The group descends, knives of stone flashing. Blood steams as it hits snow. You're too hungry for reverence, but still, someone mutters a quick word of thanks to whatever powers may listen. The smell of iron and flesh fills the air, dizzying. You taste it already in your mouth. Later, as the fire crackles and the meat roasts, you huddle close with the others. The fat drips, sizzling, and for a moment it feels almost like joy. Your stomach growls loud enough to make someone laugh, and you laugh with them, because here, even laughter feels like rebellion against the cold. You sink your teeth into the meat, hot and tender, and every fiber of your body lights up. This is survival. This is the closest you'll get to happiness here. The shadows of wolves prowl just beyond the firelight, their eyes gleaming, but tonight, you're the ones who feasted. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow the struggle starts again. The fire has burned low, a faint orange glow licking at the blackened wood, and you wake to the sound of wind rattling through bare branches. Your lips are dry and cracked, your throat feels like sand, and you realize the first order of business today isn't food. It's fire. Always fire. Without it, the cold will climb into your chest and make a permanent home there. You crouch, rubbing the sleep from your eyes, and check the embers. A few are still alive, glowing faintly like stubborn little stars. You breathe on them gently, coaxing, like trying to convince a tired friend to stay awake just a bit longer. A handful of dry grass is sprinkled over, and you blow again, cheeks hollowing, eyes stinging from the smoke. Slowly, the ember swells, then leaps into a small flame, greedy and fragile. Relief hits you like warmth itself. You've done it, you've kept the gods on your side for another morning. Keeping fire alive is a job, a fear, and a miracle all wrapped in one. You know too well what happens when the flame dies. Last winter, when the storm buried your camp, the fire drowned under the snow. You and the others had to spend hours striking flint, fingers numb, coughing in the icy air, until sparks finally caught. By then, one of the children's lips had turned blue. You still hear the way her mother rocked her body, chanting low prayers, as though words could thaw flesh. This is the worst time to have been a human, because even smoke stings like betrayal. The flames give warmth, yes, but they also bite. As you feed sticks into the fire, your eyes water, and you can't help blinking against the acrid sting. Someone nearby coughs sharply. Your closest friend, doubled over, hacking into their hand. Their skin looks raw where the smoke clings. You wonder how many lungs have been ruined long before wolves or hunger could claim them. The air carries the smell of singed hair from where a child leaned too close last night, trying to warm tiny fingers. No one scolded him. Better a few burned hairs than frostbite. Still, the lesson lingers, sharp as the spark that danced onto his hand. Later, as the group gathers, fire becomes the center of everything. It's the sun you make yourselves, the heart of your tiny world. Around it, plans are whispered. Where to hunt, how to move, which path might be less cruel today. And then, as always, the debates begin. Fire makes people talkative, argumentative even. Someone insists you should carry a torch to keep the flame alive while walking. Someone else shakes their head, muttering that the spirits don't like fire moving between places. You sigh because you've heard this argument before many times. Fire is more than heat. It's meaning. Some say it came from lightning, a gift torn from the sky. Others say it was stolen from the belly of the earth. And some whisper that fire is alive, watching, deciding each morning whether you deserve it or not. You think about explaining, someday, to people in the far future. You light a stove by turning a knob? A button? Imagine that. We had to spend 3 hours rubbing sticks together while our teeth chattered so hard they sounded like castanets. If only those future people could feel the way your fingers swell, blister, and split as you grind stone against stone. They'd stop complaining about waiting for their coffee machine. The hunt begins again, torches in hand this time. Flames sputter as you walk, the light flickering against the snow. The torch is heavy, dripping pitch, and you can smell it on your skin. But carrying it feels safer, like having a guardian beside you. When a shadow stirs in the distance, you brandish it instinctively, daring the dark to test you. By midday, your arm aches from the weight, but you keep the fire alive. The group pauses by a frozen stream, hacking at the surface with stone tools. Cracks splinter, water wells up, and you lower the torch, holding it carefully away from the spray. If it goes out, you'll be back to the endless grind of flint and dry grass, and no one wants that. The water tastes like iron and stone, so cold it shocks your teeth. But as you drink, you realize something odd. The ice itself holds tiny bubbles, little pockets of air from long before you were born. You chew them absent-mindedly, and it feels like swallowing ghosts of summers you've never known. A small, strange detail, but one you'll remember later. As the day drags on, fire remains your obsession. Even while scanning the horizon for animals, your mind circles back. What if the torch drops? What if the wind takes it? What if? It's a paranoia baked into your bones. Without fire, there's no cooked meat, no warmth, no light to scare away the predators that stalk at the edges. You'd be nothing but meat yourself, Someone in the group mutters that fire has its own moods. Sometimes it leaps, eager and wild. Sometimes it sulks, shrinking to embers no matter how much you feed it. The elders argue quietly about whether the flames understand you. Some insist it listens, hungers for words as much as wood. Others scoff, saying fire only wants fuel. Historians still argue. You hear your own mind echo sarcastically, whether the ancients thought fire was a god or merely a tool. Of course, you don't know the word historian yet, but you feel that future generations will spend entire lifetimes trying to decipher these flickers of your everyday fear. That night, the hunt fails. The reindeer vanish into the dark, the torches gutter low, and you trudge back with empty hands. But when you reach camp, the ember in the hearth is still there, glowing patiently under a thin crust of ash. It greets you like an old friend. You kneel, feed it carefully, and flames blossom again, casting gold light across tired faces. The meat you hoped for is absent, but the fire roars, filling the night with its restless voice. You hold your hands over it, palms raw, and think, maybe tomorrow, if the gods of sparks and smoke are kind, you'll have both warmth and food. But for tonight, survival is measured in crackling flames. And you're alive, barely beautifully alive because of it. Your stomach has been growling so long it's practically become the background music of your life. A low, constant rumble that punctuates every step you take across the frozen earth. This morning, though, it's louder, like a drumbeat in your ribs. Hunger isn't an emergency anymore. It's your default setting. You're not asking, am I hungry? You're asking, am I hungry enough to risk whatever this thing growing on the ground is? The group moves slowly, eyes scanning the barren landscape. No animals today, not even the twitch of a hair or the shadow of a bird. So instead, the elders point you toward shrubs and patches of dirt where something edible might be hiding. And edible is a generous word. What you're really searching for is anything that won't kill you too quickly. You kneel beside a tangle of roots, fingers numb as you claw through frozen soil. You pull one free, dirt clinging to it like armor. Smells earthy, bitter. Is it safe? That's the question that rules your days. There's no book of recipes, no kindly grandmother saying, don't eat that, dear. There's only trial, error, and sometimes a funeral. Your tongue is already dry when you chew the root. It's tough, fibrous, and tastes like chewing bark. Your stomach protests immediately, but you keep gnawing because the alternative is letting the hunger gnaw you instead. You glance up to see another member of your group plucking berries from a thorny bush, their lips stained red. You feel a flicker of envy until you remember last time. The memory hits sharp. A woman doubled over, moaning, after eating the wrong kind. Hours of retching, her face pale as ashes, until finally she lay still. You never forgot the smell of her sickness, or the silence that followed. That's the gamble. You eat or you starve, but sometimes eating is starving, just faster. By midday, you stumble upon mushrooms sprouting in the damp shadow of a fallen log. They look promising. White caps, thick stems. You pluck one, roll it in your palm. The surface feels spongy, almost inviting. Someone mutters that the spirits send these gifts. Another mutters back that the spirits also enjoy jokes. You laugh weakly, though your throat is raw. The truth is, no one knows. So you take a cautious bite, the flesh rubbery between your teeth. First, it seems fine. Mild, almost bland. You swallow, heart pounding, waiting. Minutes pass. No sickness. Relief sighs through you. You take another bite, bigger this time. But then your stomach lurches. The world tilts slightly, just enough to make your vision swim. You cough, spit out the half-chewed chunk, your tongue burning faintly. A trickle of panic worms through your chest. You kneel, hands on your knees, breathing shallow. Someone claps your back. Another presses snow into your palm to chew, to flush it down. You swallow the icy melt, each gulp stabbing at your chest. Slowly, mercifully, the nausea passes, but your body feels shaky, fragile, like the strings holding you together are one tug from snapping. That's when it hits you. Survival here isn't about strength, not really. It's about luck. A roll of the dice every time you put something in your mouth. In another world, you might have been remembered for courage, wit, or leadership. Here, you'll be remembered for whether or not you guessed the right berry. Later, around the fire, the group chews cautiously on what you did find. The root, roasted until it's only half inedible, and a handful of nuts cracked open with aching fingers. It's not much, but it fills the silence, if not the belly. The children suck at the shells, hoping for flavor. The adults stare into the flames, faces hollowed by hunger. And as the warmth washes over you, you realize hunger has a sound. Not just the growl in your gut, but the way people's voices drop, slower, weaker. The way laughter becomes rare. The way movement slows, as though every gesture costs more than it's worth. Hunger is a tax on your entire being, and it never stops collecting. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you imagine explaining this to someone centuries from now. Yeah, you get hangry when your pizza delivery takes an extra 15 minutes? Try waiting 3 weeks for anything remotely chewable. You almost chuckle, almost. Humor tastes better than roots. Anyway, the elders, trying to soothe the fear, tell a story as the fire crackles. They speak of ancestors who once found a valley full of fruit trees, where food was endless and sweet. They say maybe if the spirits are kind, you'll find it too. But in their eyes, you can see doubt flickering like shadows. You know what they really believe? That every bite is borrowed time. You curl up under your fur, belly hollow, sleep stalking you like a patient predator. And as your eyes close, you think, tomorrow, maybe the hunt will be kinder. Maybe. But for tonight, hunger is the lullaby you can't ignore. The morning sky is pale and washed out, like old bone left too long in the sun. Your breath curls into the air as you march, each step crunching on frozen ground. Hunger gnaws at you still, but today isn't about berries or roots, it's about meat. Real meat. And that means something massive, something that could feed the group for days if only you're brave or desperate enough to bring it down. You hear them first, heavy grunts, the scrape of tusks against bark, the thud of colossal feet dragging through snow. When you crest the rise, you see them, woolly mammoths, their shaggy coats matted with frost, tusks gleaming like curved ivory swords. A whole herd, moving slowly, almost lazily, as if the cold has dulled even their enormous bodies. Your chest tightens. These are giants, living mountains with legs. To hunt one is madness. But madness is better than starvation. The elders whisper strategy. Circle them. Push one apart from the herd. Aim for the weak, the young, the old. But you know the risks. One wrong move, and those tusks will carve through your ribs like they were reeds. Still, you nod because nodding is easier than arguing, and because hunger has already made the decision for you. Spears are readied, wood hardened in fire, tips chipped sharp from flint. They feel small in your hands, laughably small compared to the towering creatures ahead. But small is all you've got. The group fans out, crunching quietly across the snow. Your heart pounds so loudly you're sure the mammoths can hear it. You grip the spear tighter, palms slick despite the cold. The plan is simple in theory. Isolate, surround, harry. In practice, it's chaos. You rush forward, shouting, waving your arms. The herd startles, a wave of fur and tusks shifting as they shuffle nervously. One young mammoth stumbles near the edge, bleeding in panic. This is your chance. You and the others close in, spears jabbing, cries rising sharp in the air. The mammoth thrashes, swinging its tusks with terrifying force. Snow sprays up as its massive feet stamp down, each one strong enough to crush bone. You duck, breath hitching, as a tusk slices the air just above your head. The world is noise and motion. Shouts, trumpeting cries, the thud of spears striking thick hide. Blood spatters, dark against the snow, but not enough. The creature bellows, eyes wild, pain and rage mingled. Your arm shakes as you jab again, the spear tip sinking shallowly into its flank. Then it stumbles, just slightly, just enough. A spear finds its mark, deep this time, and the mammoth screams. The sound vibrates in your chest, rattling your bones. You push harder, all of you, until finally, with a thunderous crash, the beast collapses. The ground shakes under the weight. For a moment, silence. Your breath comes in ragged gasps, your arms trembling. You stare at the fallen creature, its massive body steaming in the cold air. Relief and sorrow twist together. You've killed a giant, but it means your people live. The butchering begins immediately. Knives of flint cut into thick hide, peeling it back to reveal steaming flesh. Blood seeps into snow, melting it into red slush. You're too hungry for reverence, too tired for ceremony. Still, one of the elders mutters a quick word of thanks, voice low and shaking. You taste the fat before it's even cooked, your lips slick with grease, your stomach finally soothed. The others cheer weakly, exhaustion heavy on their faces. Tonight, you'll eat until you can't move, until the cold feels like an afterthought. For a brief moment, survival feels almost easy, but then you notice the shadows at the edge of the firelight. Wolves circling, their yellow eyes fixed on you and the feast. They're patient, clever, waiting for weakness. You realize with a shiver that you've traded one danger for another. Still, as you gnaw a strip of mammoth meat, juice dripping down your chin, you can't help but think, future people complain about their steak being overcooked? Try chewing through mammoth tendon with stone teeth. You almost laugh, though your jaw aches. Later, when the fire roars high and your belly is full, you stretch out under your fur. The warmth of meat spreads through you, and for the first time in weeks, you feel human again, not just an animal clawing at survival. And yet, even as you drift towards sleep, tusks and trumpeting cries echo in your dreams. Because out here, victory and terror always walk side by side. The night after the mammoth hunt should have been sweet. A full belly, a crackling fire, laughter echoing low and tired. But you wake stiff, your body aching like it's been carved out of stone. When you roll over, a sharp sting flashes in your side. You pull back your furs and see it. A small cut, just a scrape from yesterday's chaos, where a tusk grazed past you or maybe where a sharp rock caught your skin. It's tiny, almost laughable. In another world, you'd slap on a Band-Aid and complain about how inconvenient it is to type with a paper cut. Here, though, you know the truth. This little wound could be the start of the end. You press a finger to it, and the pain is sharper than you expect. Already, the skin around it looks angrier, swelling faintly. You glance at your companions, faces hollowed from years of hunger and frost, hands scarred from countless battles with stone, wood, and beast. No one here has the magic to fix you. No bottles of antiseptic, no stitches in neat rows. Only smoke, herbs, and whispered prayers. Someone suggests smearing ash into the cut to draw out the bad spirits. Someone else spits on their hand, muttering that spit heals everything. You consider both options with the weary resignation of someone who doesn't have choices, only gambles. You settle on ash, pressing the gray powder into the wound until it stings like fire. You bite your lip, tasting blood, and try not to cry out. But infection isn't picky. It creeps in quietly, silently, like a thief. And you've seen it before. Just last season, a man in the group sliced his leg while skinning a deer. At first, it seemed nothing, a shallow cut. Days later, the wound swelled, hot to the touch, oozing foul-smelling pus. Fever came next, his eyes glassy, his words jumbled. Within a week, he was gone, buried under a cairn of stones, nameless to everyone but the few of you who carried him there. The memory makes you shiver harder than the wind. You rise slowly, each step tugging at the cut, and help with the morning chores. Spears need sharpening. Meat needs drying. Bones need cracking for marrow. Every motion sends a fresh pulse of pain up your side, like the wound is reminding you it's there, whispering, "I can kill you if I want." You remember an old story told by an elder one winter night. They said once there was a hunter so strong, so fast, he could run down reindeer with his bare legs. But a thorn stuck in his foot festered, and within days he could no longer walk. His tribe left him behind because they had no choice. Even the strongest fall not to lions or mammoths, but to the smallest of invaders. You chew on that story as you chew on strips of mammoth meat, the flavor dull in your mouth. Hunger and fear don't mix well with taste. By midday, your side throbs, the swelling worse. You lean on a walking stick, pretending it's just the uneven ground. No one calls you out, but you see the worry in their eyes. Weakness is dangerous, not just for you, but for everyone. A slower step could mean a predator catches the whole group. A fevered mind could shout at shadows and give away your position. You try to hide it, to laugh when someone jokes about your clumsiness. What's next? You gonna get taken down by a squirrel? They tease. You force a grin, though your teeth chatter not from cold, but from the sweat starting to bead on your forehead despite the chill. The truth is, you're scared. Terrified. You're not afraid of mammoths, not even wolves, those you can see, fight, outrun if you're lucky. But this is invisible, unstoppable, a slow unraveling, feels unfair. And maybe that's the cruelest part, that in a world already bent on crushing you, even the smallest cut joins the fight. As night falls, the pain sharpens. You huddle by the fire, the flicker of flames painting shadows across your face. Someone notices your wince and presses a hand to your forehead. Their eyes narrow. They feel the heat radiating from your skin. Fever. The word spreads in murmurs, carried like smoke. Fever. They make a poultice of crushed herbs and smear it over the wound. The smell is bitter, sharp, almost nauseating. You close your eyes and let them work, because refusing would feel like giving up. The herbs sting, but no more than the thought of what happens if they fail. Somewhere in the darkness, wolves howl, long and mournful. You shiver, curling tighter under your furs. You think of the future again, of people complaining about paper cuts and stubbed toes. You'd laugh if it didn't hurt so much. Imagine explaining, "Yeah, that little cut on my side? That's my boss now. It's running my entire life." Sleep comes in fits, broken by fever dreams. In one, you're back under the mammoth, tusks bearing down. In another, you're drowning in icy water, lungs burning. But worst are the dreams where you're simply alone, lying still while the fire burns out. And yet, when dawn comes, you're still breathing, still alive though weak, still here though only just, because in this worst of times, even survival feels like a wound that hasn't healed. Rain wakes you before hunger does this time. Cold drops splatter across your face, worming their way under the fur you pulled over your head. You roll to your side, and the ground beneath you squishes, soggy with water that seeped in during the night. The smell is wet earth, damp hair, and smoke gone sour. You sit up and look at the home you've been depending on, if you can even call it that. A shelter of bent branches lashed together, draped in hides that sag with rainwater. The roof leaks in half a dozen places, each drop tapping out a rhythm that drives you half mad. You shift to avoid one drip, only to find yourself in the path of another. There's no escape. This is your roof. This is your castle. This is a mess. The fire sputters, smoke curling low and choking, and you cough, blinking tears from your eyes. The shelter traps the smoke instead of guiding it out, so your chest fills with heat and ash every time you breathe. You wave your hands uselessly, but the gray haze just hangs there, stubborn, making you feel like you're drowning without water. You crawl out, pushing aside a flap of hide, and the rain greets you like an enemy you never stop fighting. It pours steady, unrelenting, soaking your hair until it clings to your face. Your fur cloak, already heavy, drinks in the rain until it drags at your shoulders. Everything is wet, your skin, your shelter, your tools. Even the soil is so saturated that every step turns into a squelch. Inside, others groan awake. Someone curses softly when they realize their bedding is soaked through. A child cries, clutching at a blanket that now feels colder than bare ground. And your patience wears thin, though you know patience doesn't keep you warm. You glance at the walls of your shelter, noting how they lean precariously, how the lashings of vine loosen with each drop of rain. You patched it a dozen times already. Each fix lasts just long enough to collapse in a new way. You can't help but think of future humans in their brick houses with shingled roofs. You imagine walking into one, looking around and saying, "Wow, must be nice not to have mushrooms growing on your ceiling." Speaking of mushrooms, there they are, sprouting along the damp timbers inside your shelter. They smell earthy, sour, and more than a little mocking. It's like the world itself is laughing at you, growing fungus right above your head as you try to sleep. By midday, you're miserable enough to almost laugh at it. The rain hasn't stopped, the ground is mud, your clothes are mud, your shelter is, well, mostly mud with some sticks pretending to hold it together. You try to fix it anyway, pulling fresh branches into place, tying them down with strips of sinew. Your fingers slip, knuckles scraped, your body trembling from the chill. When you step back, the whole roof sags lower, as if sighing at your effort. And then, because this time period loves to kick you when you're down, the vermin arrive. First, the scratching of claws. Then the whiskered snout of a rodent pokes out from a corner, eyes glinting. A rat, bold as a king, scurries right across your bedding. You lunge at it, but it vanishes into the dark, tail flicking. You hear more movement, tiny feet pattering in the walls of your shelter. Great, now you're sharing your home with tenants who don't pay rent. That night, you lie awake to the sound of rain dripping on your forehead and little teeth gnawing at something near your feet. You jerk, swatting in the dark, but the scratching just resumes a moment later. You mutter curses under your breath, though no one hears them over the storm. Somewhere, you remember an elder saying the gods laugh hardest when humans try to build houses. You didn't understand at the time. Now soaked, cold, and chewed on by rodents, you get the joke. The gods must be in hysterics. But here's the odd truth. Despite the leaks, the smoke, the rats, you feel strangely protective of this sad little hut. Because it's yours. Because in a world where the wind claws at you and the cold gnaws your bones, even 4 crooked walls mean survival. As you curl into your damp bedding, you whisper a silent promise to yourself. One day, people will have walls of stone, roofs of tile, even, dare you dream, glass windows to keep the rain out. But for now, you've got branches, hides, and a family of rats. It's not much, but it's home. The morning fog drapes itself low over the valley, thick as wool, hiding the hills and trees until they look like ghosts. You push aside the sagging hide flap of your shelter and step into the pale gray, shivering as the damp air snakes into your bones. It's too quiet at first. No birds, no rustle of leaves. Just the soft squelch of your own steps. For a heartbeat you think, maybe the rain washed the world clean and empty. Then you hear it, the low, rolling rumble of bellies. Not just yours, everyone's. Hunger has a way of sharpening the air. You feel it in the hush around camp, in the way people move slower, eyes hollow, shoulders bent. Fire crackles weakly in a pit nearby, but no pot hangs over it. No meat sizzling, no roots boiling. Just smoke and silence. Your own stomach growls, twisting, like a small animal clawing from the inside. You clutch your belly as though you can silence it, but it only growls louder. A few children glance at you, their faces pale and tired. One little boy licks his fingers even though there's nothing there. Today, food must be found or else. You pick up the same battered spear you've carried since last season, the wood polished smooth where your hand always grips it. The tip is stone, lashed on with sinew that frays a little more each day. It's not much, but it's all that stands between you and starvation. The hunters gather 5, maybe 6 of you, each with eyes half closed from exhaustion, each trying to muster a scrap of strength. You move together, padding into the fog, away from the soggy huts and crying children. You don't talk. The silence is heavier than words. The world outside camp feels hostile today. The trees drip with last night's rain, branches creaking. Your breath clouds in front of you, and every step in the wet earth feels louder than it should. You pause often, listening. Once, you swear you hear the snap of twigs far off, a shape shifting in the mist. You grip your spear tighter, pulse hammering. Hunting here is a gamble. Maybe you'll find red deer, maybe only rabbits, or maybe nothing at all but your own footprints circling back to camp. And even when prey shows itself, it's never easy. You remember last month's hunt. 2 days chasing a single boar, finally cornering it, only for it to gore one of the hunters in the thigh. He limps still, and every time you see him, you wonder if food is worth the blood spilled. Hours drag. You press your ear to the earth at one point, listening for hooves. You chew on a strip of bark, trying to trick your body into thinking it's food. The taste is bitter, resinous, but at least it gives your jaw something to do. Finally, you see it, tracks in the mud. Hoof prints, fresh, leading down into a thicket. Your heart stutters. You signal with your hand, and the group fans out, quiet as shadows. There it is. A deer, head bent low, nibbling at wet leaves. Steam rises faintly from its body in the cold morning air. It looks fragile, almost holy, framed by the mist. You almost feel bad for raising your spear. Almost. Hunger doesn't allow guilt to linger long. The throw is clumsy. Your arm aches with weakness, and the stone tip glances off its flank. The deer bolts, crashing into the trees. You and the others sprint, legs burning, lungs stabbing with cold air. Branches whip at your face, mud sucks at your feet, but still you chase. Minutes blur into an hour. Your chest heaves, your legs tremble, and still the animal stays ahead. At one point you think it's gone, lost in the fog, but then you hear it stumble, a sharp crack of branches. You close in, panting, spear raised again. This time you don't miss. The stone tip sinks, the deer cries out, and the forest falls quiet again except for your own gasping breath. The kill is messy, bloody, brutal. Your hands shake as you finish it. But when it's done, the others gather close, pressing hands to the carcass, muttering thanks in half-whispered words. Dragging it back to camp feels like carrying hope itself. Everyone stirs when they see you, eyes brightening, children running forward. There are smiles, real ones, wide and desperate. For a night there will be meat. Fire will hiss as fat drips onto flames. Bellies will fill. And yet, in the back of your mind, you can't shake the thought. Tomorrow, the hunger begins again. A strange fact circles your memory. Once you overheard an elder speak of how in distant lands, people bury food in snow or salt it to last longer. Imagine, meat that stays good even days later. But here, tonight, the deer will be devoured until nothing is left but bones and smoke. Tomorrow, the chase begins again. And historians still argue whether these desperate hunts made us stronger or just kept us barely alive. You lean toward the latter as you gnaw on a strip of venison, the warmth finally spreading through your belly. You glance up at the sagging roof of your shelter. For tonight, it's not dripping. For tonight, with smoke stinging your eyes and grease on your lips, life almost feels good. The smoke from last night's fire still hangs low, curling through the camp like lazy snakes. You blink against the sting of it, your eyes sore from too many late hours spent staring into flames. The venison is gone already, stripped from the bones, sucked clean, even the marrow cracked open for its faint greasy sweetness. Nothing remains but a pile of gnawed whiteness and ash. And now, as morning settles in, a new dread circles camp like a vulture. Sickness. It starts small, almost invisible. Cough here, a sniffle there. You shrug it off, thinking maybe it's just the damp fog. But by midday, the sound spreads like a rhythm. One cough answered by another, a sneeze followed by shivers. You feel your own throat scratchy, raw, like you've swallowed dust. The smoke doesn't help. It clings in your lungs. You take a deep breath, but it rattles hollow. A girl collapses near the fire, her skin hot, slick with sweat. Her mother wails, clutching her tight, rocking as though movement could shake away fever. And you, standing close, feel your own body twinge with recognition. The sickness isn't in one person. It's in all of you, moving silent, invisible, unstoppable. No one knows where it comes from. Maybe the deer meat wasn't cooked enough. Maybe the water is tainted with rot. Or maybe the gods are angry. This explanation seems to soothe some, though it leaves your stomach twisting with helplessness. By nightfall, the camp is filled with sounds you don't want to hear. Groans, cries, moans slipping out like whispered curses. You lie curled under your hide blanket, shivering even though the fire burns close. Your head pounds in rhythm with the crackle of flames, and sweat beads on your forehead despite the chill. The worst part? There's nothing to be done. No herbs to chew, no medicine, no one to call for help. You think with grim humor about how in some far future, people will swallow tiny colored stones. Pills, someone once called them, and sickness will melt away in hours. Right now, all you have is hope and spit, and neither of those feel very reliable. At some point, someone drags in a bundle of roots, swearing they'll help. You chew them because what else can you do? The taste is sharp, acrid, like licking a moldy stick. Your stomach lurches, but you keep going. Better gagging than dying, right? Through the haze of fever, the strangest details stick out. A baby, fussing until its cries weaken into silence. A boy drawing shapes in the ash, cough racking his body, yet still he tries to sketch the curve of a deer. An old man, muttering to himself, telling stories of when winters were easier, when food was plenty, when sickness did not steal people so swiftly. You don't believe him, but you listen anyway, because the sound keeps the shadows away. Somewhere in the night, a thought slips across your mind. How fragile everything is. You walk every day as though hunger is your only enemy. But here's this invisible hand, lighter than air, ready to flatten the strong and weak alike. Hunger at least you can fight with spears. This you can't even see. The fever drags you down again, your eyelids heavy. You hear a few people singing softly, An old chant, the kind that smooths the edges of fear. Their voices wobble, breaking on coughs, yet the melody drifts steady. It almost feels like comfort, like someone laying a cool cloth on your burning head. You think fleetingly about how historians still argue whether ancient people actually lived longer when clustered together in camps, or whether gathering close only let diseases spread like wildfire. As you cough until your ribs ache, you can't help but smirk at the absurdity. Progress, you mutter under your breath, voice hoarse, sure doesn't feel very progressive. The night stretches endlessly. The fire burns down to coals. One by one, voices fade into silence. You clutch your thin blanket tighter, sweat dripping into your eyes, and you wonder, will you wake to morning, or will the sickness carry you into whatever lies beyond? And yet, despite it all, you feel your breath steady, your heart slow. Maybe your body is winning, or maybe it's just too tired to keep fighting. For now, you close your eyes and listen to the faint lull of coughing and fire crackle, as if the world itself is sighing. Morning rises pale and uncertain, the sun veiled in gray mist that feels heavy on your chest. You wake with a start, unsure if you've slept or simply drifted into half-conscious fever dreams. The camp is quieter than before, eerily so. You push yourself upright, and the blanket clings to your damp skin, rank with sour sweat. Bodies lie scattered near the fire, some moving, some not. You swallow hard, trying to count, but give up when the shapes blur together. A young boy, maybe 7 years old, sits cross-legged, silent, staring at nothing. He doesn't cry, doesn't even blink much. His mother lies still beside him, her chest unmoving, and you realize he's already spent his tears. You shiver, though the fever's broken. The air is cooler now, sharper, and it bites into your skin like cold teeth. That small relief, your sweat drying, your breath easier, comes with guilt. You survived the night. Others didn't. Hunger returns like a rude guest, jabbing your stomach just when you least want to think about it. No one has cooked anything. No one has the strength. A carcass of half-burned deer bones still lies nearby, and you think about gnawing it again. But the idea of chewing marrow slick with yesterday's sickness makes bile rise in your throat. Instead, someone suggests moving camp. The smoke, the death, the air, it all feels poisoned. Maybe somewhere else water runs cleaner. Maybe somewhere else the sickness will not follow. But the thought of moving makes your legs ache in anticipation. You're still weak, unsteady, and so is everyone else who managed to crawl through the night alive. Still, the decision is made. By midday, you're stumbling along again, carrying what little can be salvaged. The ground squelches underfoot, wet with melted frost, and every step feels like wading through exhaustion. The boy with no mother walks alone now, dragging a stick in the mud, tracing patterns. He never looks back. You notice something strange as you travel. In the trees, patches of green peek through the bare branches. Early shoots, stubborn against the cold. It's not much, but it means something. The season might be turning, and with it, hope. You pluck a few sprigs of something leafy, sniff it suspiciously. Smells sharp, bitter. Could be poison, could be medicine, could be dinner. You chew a corner cautiously. It's awful, like chewing old leather dipped in vinegar. But you're still standing, so maybe it won't kill you. By evening, the group collapses near a stream. The water trickles cold and clear, a small miracle. You drink deeply, ignoring the faint metallic taste. It's better than thirst, better than the sticky saliva of fever. Then, in the fading light, you hear laughter. Actual laughter. 2 teenagers are splashing each other in the stream, their voices echoing bright, almost normal. For a moment, the whole camp pauses, listening, as if the sound alone is a spell strong enough to heal. You almost forget your body's weight, your stomach's emptiness. Almost. Later, you lie back and stare at the stars. They look sharper tonight, clearer, like pinholes in a dark cloth. You trace patterns you've never noticed before, connect the dots into shapes. A bird, a hand, a spear. Maybe that's what ancestors always did. Looked up, desperate for stories to distract from hunger and sickness below. Somewhere nearby, an elder mutters that spirits live among those stars, watching, judging. You chuckle softly, thinking, if they're watching, they've got one miserable show. Still, the idea comforts you, like a celestial audience that won't let you vanish without applause. Historians later will argue whether early people feared the stars or loved them, whether they saw gods or just lights. You right now see both. The stars are both warning and comfort, mystery and mirror. Your eyelids grow heavy again, but this time it isn't fever dragging you down. It's sheer exhaustion, clean and honest. And as you drift, you hold on to one small thought. You've made it through sickness, through fire, through hunger. Tomorrow may be worse, but tonight, for this brief moment, you're alive under the stars. The morning begins with the kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath. No coughing, no crying, no whispers, just the faint sound of water gurgling in the stream. For a split second, you think everyone's gone, left you behind in some fever dream. Then a child sneezes and the spell breaks. You're still here. The camp is still here. But something has shifted. People are restless, glancing toward the horizon as if the sky itself has secrets to tell. A rumor spreads. Someone saw smoke in the distance. Not the thin gray of a dying fire, but a thick column, strong and black. That means others, strangers, maybe food, maybe danger, maybe both. You find yourself both eager and afraid. The thought of meeting others makes your stomach tighten. Will they welcome you or see you as competition? After all, there's barely enough to survive as it is. And yet the idea of fresh faces, new stories, maybe even new laughter, sparks something warm inside. By midday, the group decides. You'll follow the smoke. Not directly, not recklessly, but close enough to see who else walks this earth alongside you. The trek is slow. Your legs are still heavy, but there's purpose now, a destination. Each footstep feels like a drumbeat keeping everyone together. As the forest thins, you stumble onto something strange. Marks on the trees. Not claw marks, not weathering, but deliberate cuts. Straight, even strokes spiraling up the trunk. Someone was here. Someone marked this place, and not long ago. Your skin prickles. You're used to leaving almost no trace, moving lightly, carefully. To see such bold signs, it's like shouting into the wilderness. Here we are. You glance around, half expecting to catch a figure watching from the shadows. But there's only wind, stirring dry leaves across the ground. You camp early, not daring to push closer until daylight returns. The fire is small, cautious. People whisper more than they talk, every sound swallowed by the dark. You lie awake, staring into the embers, your heart tapping against your ribs like it's trying to escape. Then you hear it drumming, faint, distant, rhythmic. Not the wind, not your imagination, real. The others freeze, every ear straining. The beat goes on, steady, insistent, like a heartbeat carried through the trees. You wonder if it's a warning or an invitation. Some of the elders murmur that drums belong to spirits, not people. Others argue it's proof of another tribe. You don't care which it is, you're caught by the sound, hypnotized. It's not like anything you've heard before, not the crack of branches or the cry of animals. This is deliberate. This is communication. The drumming fades at last, leaving a silence so heavy it presses on your chest. You try to laugh it off, joke that maybe it's just some very enthusiastic woodpeckers with rhythm. Nobody smiles. Not even you. When sleep finally comes, it's shallow, fragile. You dream of figures around fires, faces painted with ash, hands beating on hollow logs. They stare at you without blinking, as if deciding whether you belong or not. You wake before dawn, sweating, the dream lingering like smoke. Historians still debate what the first drums were for ritual, hunting, or sheer joy. Right now, though, they're simply a reminder that you're not alone in this wilderness. Someone else walks under these same stars, breathes the same cold air. Someone strong enough to make music while you're still crawling out of sickness. You pack quickly in the morning. No one wants to linger. The smoke column is gone, but the memory of sound remains, echoing in your chest long after your feet begin moving again. The path ahead winds tighter now, threading through dense thickets where branches claw at your arms like impatient hands. Each step crunches on frostbitten leaves, every sound magnified in the hush of the morning. You can't shake the memory of the drumming, its pulse still vibrating in your bones. The group is divided. Some want to chase the sound, to find the strangers bold enough to sing to the night. Others insist on veering away, fearing ambush or worse. You hover in the middle, pulled in both directions, your thoughts swinging like a pendulum. By midday, the decision is taken from you. You stumble upon a clearing where the earth is blackened. Charred logs lie scattered like bones, and the air still smells faintly of ash. Someone camped here recently. Someone with more strength and numbers than your fragile band. You crouch, tracing shapes in the dirt. A footprint broad, deep, unmistakably human. And another, dozens of them. Your skin prickles with the realization you could be being tracked just as easily as you're tracking them. The boy without a mother tugs at your sleeve, pointing to something half buried in the ashes. A shard of pottery, its edges jagged but smoothed by fire. You turn it over in your hands, marveling. Pottery means more than survival. It means settling, cooking, planning. Civilization, in its earliest whisper. You imagine soups simmering slowly, not hunks of scorched meat jammed into flames. Your stomach growls at the thought. That night, you huddle close, the pottery shard resting nearby like a relic. The others argue in hushed tones. Should you learn from these strangers or avoid them entirely? Some mutter that strangers with pottery must have gods on their side. Others argue they're just people, no different, only luckier. As sleep edges close, you remember something an elder once said. Fire is not just warmth. It's proof that tomorrow is possible. Pottery feels the same way, except stronger. It whispers of futures you can barely imagine. The next day, hunger drives you farther. The forest yields little. A few bitter greens, some roots that leave your tongue numb. Then you find tracks. Animal this time, deer or elk. Spirits must be smiling, because within hours a small group corners one. The chase is frantic, breathless, ending with the crash of spears into hide. Blood splashes across your arms, steaming in the cold. The meat is tough but glorious. That night, as you chew, grease running down your chin, you can't help laughing. This isn't a feast, it's survival, but it feels like a banquet. For once, you eat until you're full. You even gnaw the bones, not out of desperation but habit. But then the laughter dies, because just beyond the circle of firelight, you hear it again, the faint roll of drums carried by the wind. This time closer. The sound isn't hostile. It's steady, almost soothing, like a lullaby if lullabies were carved from wood and echo. You listen, transfixed, even as unease creeps into your gut. Some argue the strangers are trying to communicate. Others say it's intimidation, a way to remind you whose land you've wandered into. You don't know which is worse, The boy without a mother sits up straighter than you've seen him in days. His eyes shine with something almost like hope. Maybe he hears the drums differently than you do. Maybe to him it's not threat but invitation. Historians still debate when humans first played music for each other. Some say it began with hollow bones and stretched skins. Others claim it started with voices around the fire. All you know is this: tonight, in the middle of hunger and fear, you're hearing the first beat of culture pressing against the silence of survival. Sleep comes slow, and when it does, the drums chase you into your dreams. You wake with the weight of the night still on your chest, as though the drums never really stopped but just sank deeper into the soil. The air is colder, sharper, and you can see your breath curling like smoke each time you exhale. The fire has burned down to thin orange threads, and the rest of the group stirs sluggishly, faces hollow in the dim light. No one says it, but everyone knows. You can't keep drifting aimlessly. Food and firewood won't gather themselves, and shadows that beat drums don't just disappear because you wish them away. You need direction. You need a reason to move besides survival. The elders take charge. Their voices, rough with years of smoke and hunger, circle back to one idea: stories. If strangers exist with pottery and drums, then stories about them will spread like sparks. And so, you march not just for meat or water, but for something less tangible: knowledge, rumor, whispers carried by wind. The day stretches long, footsteps pounding like echoes of the drums. By afternoon, you stumble upon something that isn't rumor at all: carved bones scattered near a fire pit. They're decorated, lines etched carefully, shapes resembling animals and strange patterns. The sight chills you. This isn't just food, it's memory. Someone marked their world, left their thoughts behind. You run your fingers across the grooves, tracing circles, spirals, marks that almost feel familiar. It's as though someone tried to trap meaning in bone the way you try to trap warmth in fire. The boy without a mother whispers, "Magic." The others nod uneasily, and no one dares pocket a piece. Later, when the group halts to rest, you catch yourself glancing at your own hands. What if someday you carved marks of your own? Would they be warnings, prayers, or jokes about burnt stew? The idea lingers as twilight slides over the trees. That night, you gather close for warmth, bellies thin but slightly fuller from roasted roots dug earlier. The fire pops, sending sparks skyward, and one of the elders begins to hum. Low, wavering, nothing like the drums, but steady all the same. One by one, voices join in, clumsy at first, then fuller. You're not much of a singer, but you find yourself humming too. The sound knits you together in a way words can't. Your chest vibrates, your throat buzzes, and suddenly it doesn't feel like you're just bodies surviving the cold. You're something bigger: a group, a sound, a presence. The younger ones giggle at first, covering their mouths, but soon they give in. Even laughter folds itself into the song, weaving between notes. The hum rises, falls, circles like the sparks above. It's messy, unpolished, but real. And then you realize you're making music of your own. Without drums, without carved bones, just breath and voice. The wilderness doesn't feel quite so empty anymore. The singing trails off eventually, voices raw, throats dry. Silence settles, but it's different now, warmer, like the afterglow of a fire. Someone mutters that maybe the drumming strangers aren't enemies after all. Maybe they're just ahead. Historians argue endlessly about whether music came before language. Some believe rhythm was the first bridge between minds, a way to sync bodies and hearts before words were ever formed. Tonight, lying in the glow of dying embers, you can almost believe it. Sleep creeps in slowly. In your dreams, carved bones rattle in time with voices. Patterns swirl across the ground, and you follow them as though they're a map, leading somewhere you've never been but have always known was waiting. Morning mist clings to your hair and clothes, dampening everything before the sun has a chance to warm it. You rise stiff, the ground pressing its memory into your back, and for a moment you forget the song from last night. But then you catch yourself humming, just a fragment, a slip of sound, and you realize the tune has already sunk its claws into your mind. You pack up camp quickly. There's no use lingering in places where carved bones whisper from the ground. The group moves steadily, step after step, until your legs are nothing more than aching sticks. Yet as the forest thins, you see something that freezes you mid-step. A wall, not stone, not wood, but reeds and sticks woven together in a tall, deliberate line. Behind it, smoke curls lazily upward. The smell hits first. Meat, cooking slowly, fat dripping and hissing in the flames. Your stomach clenches so hard it almost folds you in half. The elders panic. They gesture sharply, pulling the group down into the brush. You crouch low, peering between leaves. Shapes move behind the reed walls. People, dozens of them. They work with their hands, stacking wood, tending fire, carrying things in woven baskets. Unlike you, they don't seem desperate or ragged. They look organized. Your pulse hammers. You're staring at something you've never seen before. A village. For a long time, no one dares speak. You just watch, the air thick with awe and fear. The boy without a mother whispers that maybe this is where the drums came from. Maybe these people aren't gods but neighbors. The elders hush him, but you can see their own uncertainty flickering in their eyes. As you lie hidden, you notice details that make your head spin. Their fires don't sprawl wildly. They're neatly ringed by stones. Their spears are straighter, tipped with sharper points than yours. Some even wear necklaces of bone or teeth, decoration for no purpose other than beauty. It makes your own ragged scraps feel pitiful. The hunger gnaws at you. That smell of meat drifting from beyond the wall is unbearable. For a heartbeat, you imagine yourself slipping inside, pretending you belong. Just one bite, one mouthful, and then you'd run. The thought is so sharp it almost feels real. But instead, you lie still, cold and wet, while the village hums with life. Eventually, one of the elders signals retreat, and you crawl backward into the undergrowth. The sight vanishes, but the impression doesn't. You've glimpsed a future that feels as distant as the stars. Later, around your own meager fire, arguments ignite. Should you try to approach them? Trade? Steal? Some say it's suicide, that strangers always mean danger. Others insist you'll wither away without change. The debate spirals, louder and sharper until someone throws down a stick and storms off into the dark. You can't stop picturing the reed wall, the baskets, the meat. Civilization feels like a mirage just out of reach, and yet you saw it, smelled it. That knowledge is almost crueler than hunger itself. Historians still puzzle over this exact moment in human history, the divide between wandering bands and settled groups. Was it food, safety, or sheer chance that drove some to build walls while others kept drifting? No one agrees. All you know is this: the choice now hangs over you, heavy as the sky. That night, your dreams twist. You stand before the reed wall again, but this time it isn't strangers behind it. It's you. You're inside, tending fire, passing meat around, laughing. And then you wake, teeth clenched, still tasting smoke on your tongue. The night after you saw the reed wall feels longer than usual, stretched taut like a bowstring ready to snap. The fire sputters, the group fidgets, and you can almost hear thoughts grinding in their skulls like stones being sharpened. Nobody can sleep. Not really. Not after glimpsing that world of baskets and walls, neat fire circles, and meat sizzling like it was meant to taunt you. By dawn, decisions are already bubbling. One elder argues that you should pack and keep moving, pretend you never saw the place. Another insists that to walk away is to choose starvation. The boy without a mother, surprisingly bold, blurts out that maybe, just maybe, you could talk to them. The suggestion hangs in the air like smoke. No one laughs, but no one dares agree either. The day stretches on, and hunger gnaws at the silence. You keep drifting back to the smell of roasted meat, to the way their baskets bulged with food while your stomach twists emptily. Your feet move almost automatically, carrying you in the direction of the village without meaning to. It's like gravity pulling you closer whether you want it or not. By afternoon, you find yourself crouched again in the underbrush, staring through gaps in the reeds. The scene is even stranger in daylight. Children chasing each other, adults weaving mats, a woman scraping a hide with a tool smoother than anything you've ever held. And then you notice something that steals the breath from your chest. Their bodies are painted. Lines of ochre streak their faces, spirals curl across their arms, dots trail down their legs like constellations. Each mark seems deliberate, part of some system you don't understand. They don't just live, they declare. A sudden rustle makes your heart seize. One of them, tall, with a necklace of teeth and a long scar across his cheek, steps out beyond the wall. He's carrying a spear tipped with something gleaming. Not flint, not bone, something sharper, harder. For a second, sunlight flashes off the point, and you swear it looks like magic. Later, you'll learn it's obsidian, volcanic glass sharper than any blade you've known. For now, it's simply terrifying. The man scans the trees. You freeze, body pressed low, every muscle trembling. He lingers, sniffing the air as if he can smell your fear, then finally turns back toward the wall. Only when he disappears do you let yourself breathe again. Back at camp, you relay what you saw. The obsidian spear, the painted skin, the baskets, the children. Your words send shivers through the group. Some mutter that these people must be gods. Others spit, declaring them demons. But underneath all of it is envy, thick and undeniable. That night, no one can resist talking about it. Someone jokes, half serious, that maybe you should paint yourselves in mud to look stronger. Another suggests sneaking in while they sleep and stealing food. The debate spirals, looping endlessly until voices grow hoarse. You sit quietly, listening, stomach hollow but head full. Historians still argue about when humans first painted their bodies, whether it was protection, ritual, or simply art. Whatever the reason, here in the flicker of your own weak fire, the sight of painted skin lingers like a challenge. It says, we are more than hungry animals. We are something else. Sleep finally comes, heavy and restless. In your dreams, you're painted too. Swirls and dots crawling over your arms like living things. You carry an obsidian spear that hums in your grip. And when you look around, the village is gone, replaced only by endless trees and the echo of drums you can't escape. The next morning, the group moves like shadows, restless and on edge. Every twig snaps, setting nerves jangling. You've barely slept, but your dreams cling to you like cobwebs, visions of painted skin, gleaming blades, and fires that never gutter. The smell of smoke still feels real in your nose, as though the village's feast is mocking you even across the forest. By midday, your legs are leaden. Someone suggests hunting, but the game has been thin for days. Your eyes keep flicking to the direction of the village. Even when you try not to, the pull is there, constant, like staring at a flame too long. Eventually, the boy without a mother blurts out what you've all been thinking. Why not just take it? The words hang like a curse. An elder hisses at him to shut up, but you can see the thought has already taken root. Desperation makes thieves of everyone eventually. That evening, the decision comes. Quietly, without a vote, without anyone saying it aloud, you and 3 others slip away from the group. The forest is thick, the air damp, and every step feels louder than it should. Branches snag your skin, burrs cling to your legs, but you keep going, driven by hunger. When you reach the reed wall again, the sun has dipped low. Shadows stretch long and strange, and the village beyond is alive with voices and laughter. You crouch in silence, heart thudding so hard you swear it could draw them straight to you. You watch for what feels like hours, waiting for a gap, a chance. Finally, when the fire burns brightest and the voices swell, you slip closer. Your hands shake as you touch the reed wall. It's warm from the firelight, humming with life. And then, by some twist of luck, you find it. A bundle left outside. A woven basket, half hidden in the dirt, filled with roots and dried fish. Your fingers close around it before you can think. And suddenly you're running, darting back into the trees like a startled animal. The others scramble after you, breath ragged, feet pounding. For a moment, it feels like triumph, like the gods themselves have smiled on your theft. But then a sound slices through the night. Drums. Not the slow, haunting pulse you heard before. This is faster, urgent, a heartbeat gone wild. Shouts follow, sharp and angry. Firelight flares higher, and shapes move quickly beyond the wall. You've been seen. You don't stop running. Branches whip your face. Roots catch your ankles, but fear drives you forward. Somewhere behind, the basket thumps against your side, heavy with stolen food. But heavier still is the thought of obsidian spears catching your back. When at last you collapse, chest heaving, the others collapse too. You huddle in the dark, clutching the basket like it's treasure. You've done it. You've stolen from gods or neighbors or whatever they are. For now, you're alive, and your stomach won't be empty. But as you chew the tough strips of fish, listening to the forest echo with distant drums, you can't shake the truth. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of something else entirely. Historians still argue about whether raids like this were the birth of war or just desperate acts in desperate times. Did humans stumble into conflict by accident, or was it always waiting, crouched in the dark? No one agrees. What you know, though, is simpler. Tonight, you fed yourself. Tomorrow, you'll pay the price. Morning comes not with bird calls, but with silence so heavy it feels staged. You wake stiff, tongue dry from salt fish, the basket now nothing more than a skeleton of crumbs and gnawed roots. Around you, the others shift uneasily, pretending to rest, pretending not to hear what's still echoing faintly in the distance. The drums. It's the first time you realize sound itself can hunt you. Every crack of wood, every cough feels like it might carry through the trees straight to painted ears. You chew at the inside of your cheek and try not to breathe too loud. By midday, the group is divided. One side insists you should move quickly, vanish deeper into the forest before retaliation comes. The other whispers that moving is useless. They'll track you. You've seen their spears, their confidence. They probably know this land better than you know your own fire pit. When the argument grows too sharp, a shadow answers for you. Across the treeline, 3 figures appear, paint still fresh on their skin, spears glittering with black glass. They don't charge. They don't shout. They just stand watching. And somehow that's worse. You freeze like a startled deer. The boy without a mother clutches at your arm so tightly his nails leave crescents. No one dares move. After a long, unbearable silence, the figures melt back into the trees, vanishing as if swallowed whole. The message is clear. They know. The rest of the day is a blur of panicked decisions. Some people want to abandon the elders, move faster with only the strong. Others cling to the idea that maybe you can offer something in trade: bones, skins, shells. But you all know the truth. You stole from them. and theft carries memory longer than any gift. That night, you try to sleep, but the forest feels alive in a different way. Leaves rustle without wind, branches snap without weight. You picture painted hunters crouching just beyond sight, eyes gleaming, waiting for the right moment. Every time you close your eyes, obsidian points glimmer behind your lids. And then, like a cruel joke, rain begins. Cold, steady, soaking everything. Your fire sputters into useless smoke, and suddenly you are blind, deaf, and exposed. Water seeps into your bones, into the marrow itself. You sit shivering in mud, realizing how fragile your world really is. Somewhere in the hiss of rain, a low hum threads through. At first you think it's thunder, but no, it's voices. Deep, rhythmic, rising and falling. A chant. You can't make out the words, but you feel the weight of them. They're close enough that the sound vibrates through your ribs. One of the elders whispers that maybe it's not anger but warning, that perhaps they're giving you a chance to leave, to run. But someone else mutters bitterly, "No, they're letting us know we're already caught." Historians debate whether early raids escalated into ritualized war, or if what you're hearing now, this haunting chorus, is more like theater meant to scare than to kill. Maybe intimidation itself was a weapon sharper than obsidian. No one can prove it. What you can prove right now, with mud soaking your legs and breath fogging in the cold, is that the world has changed. You are no longer wandering in a quiet, empty land. There are others, organized and watchful. And when you look down at your own trembling hands, clutching nothing but a dull stone, you know you are far from prepared. The rain lingers into morning, turning the ground into a swamp of slick roots and mud that sucks at your ankles with every step. You stumble forward, half dragging, half carried by the sheer momentum of fear. Sleep has left no trace in you, only a gnawing awareness that the painted people could be watching from behind every dripping tree trunk. When you pause to drink from a puddle, the water tastes like ash. Not from any fire you can see, but from memory. Smoke still lives in your throat from the village feast you'll never forget. It's almost cruel. The taste of warmth while you shiver cold and exposed. The elders call for a halt, gathering everyone under a bent pine. That's when a decision takes root. We must offer something. One says, voice thin as reed paper. Show we are not enemies. They rummage through the meager pile of belongings. Bone needles, cracked beads, a fox pelt stiff with old blood. It's nothing compared to smoked fish and strong shelters. Still, desperate hands arrange it into a bundle, wrapped in bark like a peace offering. And then comes the task no one wants. Who will bring it? All eyes flick to you. Maybe because you were the one who grabbed the basket, or maybe because you're still young enough to be disposable. Either way, the stairs pin you down like stones. Before you can protest, the bundle is shoved into your arms. You don't remember deciding to walk, only that the forest seemed to part unwillingly, each tree a witness as you trudge toward the smoke on the horizon. Every step feels heavier, the offering a weight of guilt and mud combined. At the edge of a clearing, you see them, the painted people again, 3 this time, sitting by a fire that hisses in the drizzle. They don't startle at your presence. One of them raises a hand, not in greeting but in warning. You stop so quickly your knees nearly buckle. With trembling fingers, you place the bundle on the ground. Then, heart pounding, you back away. You want to run, but you know turning your back would be a mistake. So you retreat step by step, like a child hoping the shadow in the corner won't follow. The tallest of the 3 rises and approaches the bundle. His hand hovers over it, then clenches into a fist. He doesn't take it. Instead, he looks directly at you, face unreadable beneath streaks of ochre. A long, slow exhale sends steam into the rain. Then he kicks the bundle into the mud. The message is clear. gifts don't erase theft. You bolt before your legs even realize what they're doing. By the time you reach your group, the words tumble out of you in broken gasps. The elder just nods grimly, as though he expected it. That night, no one speaks. You huddle close, wet and miserable, listening to the distant rhythm of drums starting again. But this time, they're slower, heavier. Not the wild chase of a hunt, but something ritual, something ancient. Historians still argue about whether these rhythms marked war councils or ceremonial feasts. But you know how they feel, like the sound of a countdown. Somewhere deep inside, you realize you are no longer choosing your own path. The beat is choosing it for you. The night presses down, thick and wet, and every drop of rain feels like a finger tapping against your skull, reminding you of the drums that still throb beyond the trees. You try to count the beats, to guess their meaning, fast, slow, pauses that stretch just long enough to toy with your nerves. But the rhythm isn't meant for you. It's a language, one you don't speak, and that makes it worse. At some point you drift into a shallow half-sleep, and when you wake, the world is glowing pale gray. Mist curls through the branches, muffling sound, as though the forest itself is tired of all this noise. For a moment, you dare to hope the painted ones have gone back to their own camp. But then you see it, a mark carved into a tree near your camp. A spiral, blackened with ash. Not clumsy like your group scratches for trails or tally marks, but deliberate, ceremonial. A message. You don't know what it means, but you don't need to. Your stomach knots instantly. The younger children start crying, and their mothers hush them, though their own hands shake. One of the men suggests moving east, toward the river. Maybe the water can cover your tracks. Another says no, you'll be cornered on the banks. The debate grows sharp again, words like flint striking sparks. And then, as if the forest decides for you, a cry splits the mist. Not human, something guttural, low, rolling from far away. It doesn't sound like any animal you know. It sounds like a warning played through a throat not built for speech. You push forward anyway, stumbling toward the east. The mud grows thicker, reeds tug at your legs, until at last you break into the open. The river greets you broad and fast, its surface flashing silver beneath the weak sun. Relief stings your eyes, you've made it, but it's hollow. A river this wide isn't salvation. It's a wall. Someone mutters that maybe you can build rafts. You laugh dry, sharp, because you know you can't even keep a fire alive in this rain. A raft? With what tools? With what time? You'd barely finish lashing branches before an obsidian spear finds your back. You glance downstream, hoping for a shallow crossing, but the current churns too strong. Upstream? No. Hills rise there, steep and treacherous. Feels like the river is laughing, joining the drums in their game. As the group mills about in frantic whispers, you notice something across the water. Figures. Half-shapes in the mist, but enough to know. They're there too, painted and still watching. You swear one of them tilts his head as though amused. For the first time, you feel it deep in your chest. You're not prey by accident. You're prey by design. They're not chasing to catch you. They're hurting you, shaping your choices until there are none left. Historians still puzzle over whether early encounters were always violent or sometimes ritualized. Small tests of dominance, games of intimidation. But what you're living feels less like survival and more like theater. You're the actor, and they're the audience waiting for the final act. Night comes again before any plan is made. You sit by the river's edge, cold, sleepless, listening to the water clash against itself. Somewhere out there, drums murmur low and steady. You can't tell if they're across the river or behind you in the woods. Maybe both. And that's when it sinks in fully. The worst time to be alive isn't about hunger or storms. It's about being caught in someone else's story and realizing you don't get to write the ending. The morning air is heavy with fog, thick enough that you can't tell if the river flows or simply hovers in place. Your group shuffles along the bank, feet dragging in the mud, each person clinging to the idea that maybe, just maybe, there's a place shallow enough to cross. But the current laughs at you, loud and unrelenting, splashing against boulders with a rhythm that feels suspiciously like the echo of those drums. You stop when someone hisses and points. Across the river, a line of smoke curls upward. Not a cooking fire, it's too tall, too deliberate. A signal. Your chest tightens. You've never been good at interpreting smoke, but this you can read clearly. We see you. The group argues again. Some want to risk the water, others say to go back into the trees. You notice a third option. Along the bank, tucked under the slope, roots have woven themselves into a crude tangle, forming something like a tunnel. Maybe, just maybe, it could hide you. The elders dismiss it. Holes are for animals. But you can't shake the thought. At this point, being an animal sounds safer than being human. Still, the group pushes upstream, searching, always searching. Hours blur. Hunger gnaws at your belly like a rat. Someone tries to chew on raw cattail roots, but the taste is bitter, acrid, and it makes him spit foam. That does nothing to calm the rising panic. Then you hear it again, the cry, that guttural, rolling sound that doesn't belong to any beast you know. Comes from behind this time, closer. Everyone freezes, shoulders hunched, eyes darting. A few stones tumble into the river as someone stumbles back. The sound doesn't repeat, and somehow that's worse. By the time night drops, you've found nothing but despair. No crossing, no food, no plan. You huddle near the slope, and when you glance again at the root's hollow, you swear it looks wider now, almost inviting. You don't crawl inside, yet, but you can't stop staring at it, as though the earth itself is whispering an escape no one else hears. The others try to sleep, muttering prayers or curses under their breath. You stay awake. The mist clings close, muffling every sound, until you realize the silence isn't natural. The river is quieter. Too quiet. You lean forward and see it. Figures across the water again, standing in the mist, not moving, not speaking, just there, waiting. Your mouth goes dry. You glance back at the hollow, then at the watchers. You can't explain why, but suddenly you understand the cruelest part. They don't even need to chase you anymore. They just need to stand still and let dread do the work. Some historians debate whether these encounters were truly hostile or part of complex rituals. Tests, exchanges, psychological games. But standing here with your knees trembling, it doesn't feel like scholarship. It feels like the slow tightening of a noose you can't even see. When dawn edges in, you're still awake, shivering and sore. The others stir, and you know what must be said. You're going to suggest the hollow. It's foolish, probably deadly, but the painted watchers won't let you pass, and the river won't let you cross. Better to vanish underground like an animal than to keep pretending you're free. The ground feels damp against your palms as you crouch before the hollow. The tangled roots look like fingers frozen mid-grasp, clawing at the air. Nobody wants to be the first to crawl inside, but you hear your own voice suggesting it anyway, trembling but steady enough to push the others into silence. They look at you the way people look at someone volunteering to drink from a strange cup, half grateful, half horrified. So you bend low, pressing your face to the earth, and inch forward. The soil is cool and reeks of wet moss and worms. Each breath brings grit into your mouth. Behind you, the group whispers nervously, debating whether to follow. You push deeper. At first, it's just a shallow scoop, but then, miraculously, the ground yields. The roots curve like ribs overhead, and you slide into a cramped chamber just large enough to crouch. It isn't safety, not really, but it's hidden. And in this game of being watched, invisibility feels like a blessing. Soon, one by one, others crawl in. The chamber grows hot with breath, bodies pressed together, the air thick and sour. Someone tries to hush a baby, but the infant's whimper rattles through the roots like a beacon. You clench your jaw, praying the sound doesn't carry. Time bends. You don't know if it's been an hour or a night. All you know is the thudding in your chest and the way the soil seems to hum faintly, as though the earth itself is listening. Then footsteps, muffled but unmistakable, heavy, deliberate, moving just above. The painted ones. You freeze, heart clawing its way into your throat. Through a crack in the roots, you glimpse shadows shifting against the fog. They stop right above the hollow. One crouches, presses a palm to the earth as though feeling your very heartbeat through the soil. Nobody breathes. The silence stretches until your ribs ache. Then, finally, the shadow straightens. Slow steps retreat. The forest exhales again, and so do you. Historians argue whether such hiding burrows were deliberate structures or simply accidents of nature used in desperate moments. But in here, with the dirt pressed against your cheek and the taste of fear metallic on your tongue, it feels like the kind of invention only panic could create. When night falls again, the group whispers about staying hidden until the watchers lose interest. But you know better. They're not leaving. This is entertainment to them. The more you cower, the more they own you. And then comes the proof. A faint flicker of firelight outside. They've lit torches, not for warmth, but to remind you they're still there. The glow seeps through the cracks like mocking eyes. You realize now there's no staying here forever. The soil might protect you from sight, but not from hunger, not from thirst, not from smoke if they choose to fill this burrow with it. So the question changes. It isn't how do we hide anymore. It's when do we run? You don't sleep. Nobody does. The burrow is too small, the air too stale, the silence too sharp. Every cough feels like an alarm bell, every shift of weight a betrayal. You count heartbeats, then give up, there are too many. When dawn leaks in through the cracks, the soil around you glows faintly gold. Someone mutters that maybe the watchers are gone. You want to believe it. You almost let yourself believe it. But then you smell the smoke. Not faint, like last night's flicker, thick, acrid, deliberate. It seeps through the roots in thin gray tendrils, stinging your eyes. Panic explodes in the chamber. Hands shove, knees scrape, voices hiss. You scramble for the opening, clawing out into the wet grass, coughing until your ribs hurt. The others tumble after you, gasping like fish flung ashore. And there they are, across the clearing, just beyond the smoke, the painted figures. They don't charge. They don't even shout. They simply stand, silent as stone, watching you flail in the daylight. That stillness is worse than any roar. It tells you that you're not an enemy. They don't respect you enough for that. You're prey. The group bolts. Into the trees, deeper this time, roots ripping at your ankles, branches lashing your face. You run not because you think you'll escape, but because stopping means surrendering. The forest closes around you, tangled and endless. Hours blur. You collapse more than once, knees in the mud, lungs searing. Somehow you rise again because everyone else does, and shame is stronger than exhaustion. Finally, you stagger into a clearing, and there, impossible luck, a herd of deer, sleek, startled, bounding through the underbrush. One of the hunters grins with sudden, desperate joy, lifting his crude spear. Food, finally, salvation. He hurls it, and for a moment you dare to hope. The spear misses, clattering harmlessly against a trunk. The deer vanish like smoke. The grin collapses into despair, and the silence that follows is unbearable. Your belly aches with emptiness. Someone whispers that maybe roots and bark could keep you alive, maybe insects if you're desperate enough. You glance at the ground, at the tiny trails of ants and beetles. Funny how quickly you're willing to negotiate with disgust when hunger bites harder than pride. But then the forest interrupts. A low thrum drums again, faint but steady. The sound is chasing you, circling you, weaving into the rhythm of your racing pulse. You can't tell if it's real or your imagination feeding on terror. Either way, the effect is the same: you are being herded. Historians sometimes wonder if such pressure was deliberate strategy, forcing groups into traps. Standing here, shaking in the middle of this clearing, you don't wonder. The choice sharpens like a blade. Keep running until the forest swallows you whole, or turn and face the watchers who've decided you're tonight's entertainment. Neither feels survivable. But then again, this is the worst time to have ever been a human. Survival was never guaranteed. The clearing doesn't feel like a refuge anymore. It feels like a stage. You shift your weight, listening, heart rattling against your ribs. The forest has gone quiet in that unnerving way, as though even the insects know to hold their breath. Only the drums remain, soft but steady, threading through the trees. Your group huddles together, a trembling knot of bodies. Someone mutters that maybe the sound is far off. Maybe it's just wind in hollow wood. You know better. Wind doesn't keep rhythm. The debate begins in harsh whispers. Do you keep running? Or do you try to hide again? Hiding seems laughable now. The watchers already proved they can smoke you out like wasps from a nest. Running seems pointless too. How far can tired legs carry you when someone else controls the map? It's then that one of the older women, gray streaking her tangled hair, mutters something unexpected. Maybe we go toward them. Everyone stares. Has she gone mad? But her eyes don't flicker. She means it. If they want a show, she says, then let's walk onto their stage. You can almost hear the historians arguing centuries later. Was this bravery, fatalism, or simply the tired practicality of someone who knew the forest offered no refuge? All you know is that her words dig into you. You walk, slowly, carefully, like condemned actors moving toward the footlights. The drums grow louder, clearer, each beat a heartbeat outside your chest. The path opens, not by chance but by design, funneling you forward. And then you see them, dozens now, painted in spirals of ash and ochre, feathers bristling from hair, eyes glinting with something unreadable. They do not rush you. They part to let you stumble into their circle. The air inside is different, thick with smoke from a fire pit, sharp with herbs you can't name. The smell clings to your tongue, bitter and strange. The circle closes behind you, and suddenly there's no forest, no escape, just the watchers, the fire, and the drums. One figure steps forward, taller than the rest, cloak dragging in the dirt, face smeared with white paint that makes the eyes gleam unnaturally bright. You can't tell if this is a leader or simply the most decorated tormentor, but everyone's posture shifts when they move. The figure studies you in silence, then lifts a hand. The drums stop. The sudden stillness is crushing. You realize how loud your own breath sounds. Then the figure laughs, low, rasping, almost amused. It echoes through the circle like mock applause. A few of the painted ones mimic the laugh, a ripple of sound that prickles your skin. You feel like a rabbit frozen under the gaze of a hawk. The figure points to you, then to the fire, then back again. It isn't a command in words, but the meaning is unmistakable. Perform. You have no idea what kind of performance they expect. Dance? Song? Begging? Your group stares at you as if you volunteered for this role simply by being unlucky enough to stand nearest the flames. You take a step forward, knees quivering. The ground is hot, cracked around the fire pit. Sparks spit into the night like tiny stars. You don't know what you're doing, but you do something anyway because doing nothing feels like surrender. You move, awkward, clumsy, swaying as though the drums still play, though they don't. The painted ones watch, their expressions unreadable. Some smirk, others tilt their heads like owls. Your group behind you shifts uneasily, but nobody pulls you back. For now, you are the distraction. For now, their eyes are not on them. And in this strange, humiliating theater, you realize something chilling. Maybe survival depends not on hiding or fighting, but on entertaining. The flames lick upward, painting your face in shifting gold and shadow. Every sway of your arms feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. You're not sure whether you're humiliating yourself or keeping everyone alive, or both. The watchers tilt their heads, unreadable, as though they've seen 100 such desperate spectacles before. One of them finally breaks the silence with a sharp whistle. Instantly, the circle erupts in drumming again. Faster this time, more insistent. Your awkward swaying suddenly has rhythm, whether you want it or not. The beat crawls into your bones, nudging your knees, pushing your hips. You're not dancing, you're being danced. A ripple of laughter runs through the circle. Not cruel exactly, but certainly amused, like you're a child making funny faces. It would almost sting less if they looked angry. At least anger you could measure. Amusement is impossible to predict. Behind you, someone in your group takes a risk. A young man, maybe trying to save you, maybe trying to distract attention, lets out a guttural call, half shout, half song. It's shaky but bold, echoing against the trees. The watchers pause, intrigued. Then one of them mimics the sound perfectly, tossing it back across the fire. A call and response begins, strange and eerie, like wolves teaching humans their own language. The others in your group, trembling but desperate, add voices too. Soon there's a chorus, thin but real, weaving with the drums. You feel yourself swept along. Your arms lift, your feet stamp. For a fleeting moment, it feels less like humiliation and more like communion. A strange, fragile bridge of noise and firelight. But then it cracks. A spear slams into the dirt inches from your toes. The ground shudders. You freeze, throat tight, while the circle erupts in wild laughter. One of the painted hunters retrieves his weapon, grinning with teeth stained red from some root, or maybe blood. Hard to tell. He twirls the spear lazily, eyes locked on you, as if daring you to keep moving. The leader, still cloaked, lifts a hand. Silence falls again. They step forward, into the firelight, close enough that you can see the paint cracked along their cheeks, the glimmer of sweat on their brow. They don't speak, but they extend something. A chunk of roasted meat, dripping with fat. Your stomach knots with hunger so sharp it's almost painful. You don't know if this is a gift, a test, or bait. But refusing doesn't feel like an option. Slowly, you reach out and take it. The meat is hot, greasy, searing your fingers. You lift it to your mouth and bite. Salt floods your tongue, smoky and rich. For an instant, your body trembles with sheer relief. The circle cheers. Not a mocking cheer this time, something closer to approval. The drums start again, steadier, like a heartbeat you've somehow joined. You realize, dizzy with both fear and hunger, that you've just passed some invisible audition. Historians still puzzle over these strange rituals. Were they ceremonies of dominance? Initiations? Or were starving outsiders like you occasionally folded into the fold through fire and performance? The record is silent, but the questions remain. For now, none of that matters. All you know is that you've eaten. You're still alive. And in this world, that's enough. You sit with grease still on your lips, the taste clinging stubbornly to your tongue. It's the richest thing you've eaten in days, maybe weeks. Your companions eye you, half relief that you're not dead, half envy that you got the first bite. The watchers, meanwhile, have already moved on to their own feast, tearing meat from bones, passing skins of some fermented drink, laughing in guttural bursts that roll like thunder. No one restrains you. No ropes, no spears pressed against your neck. But the circle itself is the prison. Every direction walled by painted bodies, glinting eyes, and that ever-present rhythm of drums. You think about bolting, then immediately discard the thought. You wouldn't make it 3 steps. Instead, you watch. You notice details you missed in the panic. The feathered cloaks, each with a different pattern. The scars etched across arms and chests, carved as though skin itself was parchment. The way the fire's smoke doesn't just rise, but is deliberately wafted toward the group with bundles of herbs. It's more than intimidation. It's ritual. Someone beside you whispers a question you've been avoiding. Do they mean to keep us? The word keep hangs in the air, heavy, like livestock, like curiosities. You don't answer. The leader speaks then, finally words instead of gestures. The language is alien. Consonants like stones rolling downhill, vowels stretched thin as leather. You can't make out meaning, but the tone is unmistakable. Measured, commanding, almost ceremonial. One by one, members of the circle respond, bowing heads, thumping chests. The call and response feels like a script older than memory. Then your group's turn. The leader points directly at you again. The fire snaps, sparks swirling like angry fireflies. You freeze. What answer can you give? Your instinct surprises even you. You copy what you've seen. You place a hand against your chest, bow your head slightly. A crude mimicry, yes, but it's the only bridge you can offer. Your companions, scrambling, do the same. Pause stretches. Then the circle erupts. Not in laughter this time, but something closer to applause. Spears rattle against the dirt. Voices chant in unison. You've done something right without knowing what. Still, your skin prickles. Approval doesn't equal safety. Could just mean the game is going well. And games, as you know, can end many ways. Later, as the fire burns lower, you're herded, not roughly but firmly, toward the edge of the clearing. A ring of huts waits there, shadowy outlines of thatched roofs against the moon. The watchers gesture. Inside, you duck into one. It smells of smoke and hide, the floor beaten earth, the walls smeared with ochre designs that twist like serpents. A mat of woven reeds lies in the corner. It's more comfort than you've had in weeks, but lying down doesn't ease your nerves. Every creak of the walls, every cough outside makes your stomach tighten. You wonder, not for the first time, if you've survived only to become part of something stranger, absorbed into a story you don't understand. You drift toward uneasy sleep with the image of those gleaming eyes burned into the back of your mind. And historians, they still argue, were such moments the fragile beginnings of alliances, or merely the prelude to slaughter? Nobody agrees. What's clear is that for you, in that smoky hut, the line between prisoner and guest has never felt thinner. Morning finds you not with sunlight, but with smoke. Thin gray tendrils seep through the cracks in the hut, scratching your throat before you even open your eyes. Outside, voices rise, low, steady, like a tide of words being poured into the ground. You sit up, every joint stiff, every muscle reminding you that sleep wasn't really rest. Stepping outside, you see them gathered again. The circle isn't around fire this time. It's around stones. Upright slabs, arranged carefully, each streaked with pigments that gleam wet in the dawn. The hunters, the painted ones, the people who claimed your night, are now silent in a way more chilling than their drumming. They're watching something, or someone, Two figures stand at the center. One is the leader, recognizable now without the cloak. Tall, shoulders squared, face marked not just with paint but with deep, deliberate scars. The other figure is shaking, an outsider like you, dragged in from somewhere else, bound at the wrists. You freeze as you realize, this is no dance. This is judgment. The leader lifts a carved stone blade, more ritual than weapon, and the crowd hums. Not words, just sound. A vibration that turns your ribs into tuning forks. You clutch your own chest, feeling the hum reverberate through bone. The bound outsider is forced to kneel. They cry out something guttural, panicked. You can't understand the words, but you understand the meaning. Begging. The leader hesitates just long enough for the sound to stretch unbearably, and then the blade comes down. No, not into flesh, into the earth. A deliberate strike that sends dust flying. The crowd erupts in exhalation, a collective sigh, half relief, half release. The outsider collapses, sobbing. Their bonds are cut. They're lifted to their feet, trembling but alive. And then something stranger. They're embraced. Federal painted with the same pigments smeared on the stones. Folded in. You watch, heart hammering. A test. That's what it was. A ritualized terror, proof of submission, proof of survival. Your companions whisper frantically. Will they do that to us? The question digs into you like a thorn. You don't answer because the truth is obvious. Yes. The circle shifts. I swivel toward you again. A hand gestures. Come forward. Every step feels like you're walking off a cliff, yet the ground stays beneath you. The leader fixes you with a gaze sharp as obsidian. Your stomach twists. Will you be struck down? Welcomed? Both? The blade is lifted. The hum begins again. You kneel without being told. Dust curls around you, hot and bitter. The stone descends, slamming into the earth so close you feel grit sting your skin. The sound reverberates through your skull. The silence afterward is total, suffocating. And then, slowly, they reach out, not to strike, but to smear pigment across your brow. A rough hand, sticky with ochre, leaving a line that burns with both warmth and fear. The crowd exhales again, the same ritual release. You've been marked. You're alive. For now. Historians still debate what such ceremonies meant. Were they gestures of peace? Terrifying social contracts? Or simply theater designed to remind you of your smallness beneath the weight of their world? No one agrees. But one thing is certain, you've been claimed. And in this world, belonging might be as dangerous as exile. You spend the day painted. The line across your brow itches as it dries. Flakes catching on your lashes whenever you blink. Feels less like decoration and more like a leash you can't shake off. Your companions stare at you differently now. Half relieved you weren't carved into pieces. Half unsettled that you've been touched by something they haven't. The village, if that's what it is, wakes fully with the sun. Smoke rises from smaller fires, women grinding seeds on flat stones, children darting like restless sparrows, dogs or something that acts like dogs, with broader jaws and heavier shoulders. Circle the huts, noses always twitching. Life here is ordinary, almost boring, and that somehow is scarier than the blade in the dirt. You're told nothing. No instructions, no clear commands. Just a push toward baskets of roots, a nod when you carry wood. You understand. Prove you're useful. Be absorbed. The alternative is too obvious to say aloud. At one point you wander too close to the circle of stones again, curiosity pulling you. A hand clamps your shoulder hard enough to bruise, dragging you back. A woman, face streaked with red paint, snarls something you don't understand. She gestures sharply, away, away. That place is sacred. Not yours. Not yet. Maybe never. Instead, you watch from the sidelines as they prepare something new. A hunt. Spears are checked, points sharpened, bodies smeared with fresh ash and ochre. The painted warriors move with an ease that makes you painfully aware of how clumsy you are in your worn-out shoes, your sore legs. When they vanish into the forest, silence swallows the clearing. The absence of their noise is almost louder than their presence. Hours pass. The sun climbs, heat turning the ground into an oven. Children nap in the shade. Your companions whisper in huddles, debating escape. But where? The forest? The hills? Every direction is a trap of hunger, thirst, and the certainty that these people know the land better than you ever will. When the hunters return, the world changes. They're dragging something massive, boar, tusks glinting, hide streaked with blood and sweat. The air fills with triumph. Drums return, pounding with double the speed of last night. The village surges alive, voices raised, fires stoked higher, and then you're pulled into it. Not roughly, enthusiastically. A hand thrusts a stick at you, meat sizzling at its end. Another smears your arm with blood from the kill, laughing as though it's the funniest joke in the world. You're pushed into the circle, where bodies move in rhythm, a dance equal parts celebration and chaos. You stumble, awkward, terrified, yet the more you mimic, the more they cheer. Your clumsy hops and hesitant claps are answered with roars of approval. For a moment, you almost forget the danger. Almost. But when the meat reaches your mouth, gamey, smoky, rich, you can't help but think of the outsider who knelt with the blade over their head this morning. You chew slowly, wondering if this taste is victory, or just another step in a slow assimilation. Later, as the fires die down and people collapse in heaps of laughter and exhaustion, you lie awake again. The paint still clings to your brow, the blood streak still marks your arm, and the thought gnaws at you. Are you surviving, or are you being swallowed? Historians, for what it's worth, can't agree. Some call this the earliest form of diplomacy. Eat together, dance together, trust begins. Others argue it's a softer kind of domination, a way to erase difference without ever drawing blood. But in that flickering half-dark, you can't parse theories. All you feel is the weight of belonging pressed against your chest like a stone. The night air is thick with smoke and the faint sweetness of roasted roots. You lie there, half buried under furs that don't belong to you, listening to the village snore. Every sound feels magnified, the crack of wood shifting in the fire, the huff of those half-wolf dogs circling the huts, the low murmur of a dreamer talking in their sleep. And yet you can't sleep, because you saw it. At the edge of the clearing, just before you finally lay down, the leader slipped into the circle of stones. Alone. No drums, no cheering. Just them and a shallow bowl of glowing coals. They pressed something into the fire, maybe herbs, maybe bones, maybe both. The smoke curled upward like a living thing, and they bent low to breathe it in. When they lifted their face again, their eyes were streaming, their chest heaving. You'd like to think it was just smoke stinging their eyes. But there was something in that moment, an intensity, a trembling, that made you wonder if they'd glimpsed something bigger, darker. The next morning, the village wakes early. This time, you're not nudged toward chores. You're summoned. The leader points directly at you, then at two of your companions. Three chosen like plucked threads. No explanation, no words you understand, just a command. You're given packs, crude but sturdy, filled with dried meat and roots. Spears are pressed into your hands, heavier than you expect. Then the leader marks each of you with ash. Long streaks down your cheeks, like rivers or scars. Feels like a blessing or maybe a curse. And then you march. The forest is endless. Light slices through gaps in the canopy, turning everything into shifting mosaics of gold and green. Your feet sink into damp earth, roots curling like snakes to trip you. The air hums with unseen insects. You can't tell if you're being guided to safety, exile, or some test you'll fail spectacularly. At one point you stumble into a patch of moss so soft it feels like memory foam, and you almost laugh, before remembering there's no one here who'd understand the joke. Your companions whisper furiously in the pauses. Some think this is banishment. Others think it's training. One swears you're walking toward a sacred cave. He overheard a word repeated in whispers last night, something guttural and urgent. By dusk you reach it. A cliff face looms, black with shadow, its entrance gaping like a wound. Marks streak the rock, handprints in ochre, lines in charcoal. Ancient graffiti, layered and layered until the surface is a palimpsest of human memory. You feel your chest tighten. You've seen images like this in museum textbooks. But standing here, smelling the iron tang of paint, hearing the hush of your own breath, it's terrifying. You're shoved forward. Inside, the cave swallows light whole. The air is cool, damp, heavy. Torches sputter, casting frantic shadows across the walls. And then you see them. Figures. Painted figures. Not stick people but bodies twisted in motion, hunters with spears, animals mid-leap, spirals that make your head spin. Some are so fresh the paint still glistens. Others are faded, worn down by centuries of smoke and touch. Together, they form a mural so dense you can't look anywhere without seeing a story. And here's the strangest part. One of the figures looks like you, or at least it could be you. A body awkwardly bent, arms raised in a pose of both fear and dance. It's uncanny enough that your stomach lurches. Your companions see it too. You hear the sharp intake of breath, the muttered curses. The leader gestures sharply. You're expected to step forward, to stand in front of the painted you. What happens next isn't clear. Do you reenact the dance? Do you prove yourself as some half-prophecy fulfilled? Or do you refuse and see where the spears land this time? Historians still argue about caves like these. Were they maps, rituals, or portals to the divine? Or all at once? Theories pile up like bones, none definitive. But in this moment, none of that matters. Because every painted eye seems fixed on you, waiting for you to move. You stand frozen, as if the cave walls themselves are holding their breath. The flickering torchlight makes the painted figure, your figure, quiver and shift. For an instant you think the arm is moving, beckoning you closer, the way a nightmare always dares you to step inside. The leader grunts, a short sound that feels like both command and threat. One of your companions nudges you, their face pale beneath the smear of ash. You stumble forward until your shadow falls directly over the painted twin. The cave smells of minerals, wet stone, and that smoky resin they burned outside. The damp makes every breath heavy, as though the earth itself is pressing on your lungs. You raise your hands slowly, mirroring the painted gesture. The torchlight dances across your palm. For a moment, the living and painted hands seem to overlap, as though the centuries between you have folded together like a closed book. The villagers let out a sound, a low hum, almost like a chant. It vibrates through the stone, through your ribs. Your skin prickles. You're not sure if you're honored, tested, or just volunteered for something terrifyingly permanent. Then, abruptly, the leader presses a bundle into your hands. A rough hide bag warm to the touch. Inside is a lump of something dense and sticky, like pitch. They motion for you to smear it on the wall. So you do. The substance stains your fingers, earthy and tar-dark, and when you press it to the rock, it spreads in an irregular patch. The leader nods once. Another villager takes a torch and shoves the flame against the sticky patch. Instead of burning away, it glows, like a star caught in stone. The wall seems alive. Your companions gasp. One actually drops their spear. And here's the kicker. The painted you glows too. The patch illuminates the figure, casting it into sharp relief. You're not just part of the mural now, you are the mural. The chanting grows louder, reverberating until the walls feel like they're pulsing. You half expect a hidden door to crack open, or the rock to peel away like skin, revealing some impossible underworld. Instead, the leader grabs your wrist and raises your hand high. Everyone falls silent. You hear your own breath echoing, shallow, panicked. Then the leader slaps their palm against the wall, leaving a new handprint. Others rush to do the same. One by one, they add their marks beside you, building a constellation of palms. When they're finished, the wall looks less like a hunting scene and more like a network of lives, anchored around the figure that looks suspiciously like you. You don't know if this is adoration, initiation, or a prelude to sacrifice. Honestly, you're not sure which would be worse. The villagers begin to withdraw, torches dimming. But the leader lingers, watching you with eyes so intent you wonder if they're reading thoughts right out of your skull. Then, softly, they murmur something you can't translate, but it carries the weight of prophecy, like a verdict carved into stone. And just like that, the ritual ends. You're escorted out of the cave. The cool night air rushes at you, sharp and shocking, as though the earth just spat you out. Your companions whisper furiously once more, terrified and exhilarated. One insists you've been marked as a shaman in training. Another mutters that you've been cursed, that the painted figure is a warning, not a blessing. No one really knows. And that, perhaps, is the cruelest part. Because you lie awake that night under the alien constellations, listening to the forest hiss and sigh, and you can't shake the feeling that the rock still remembers your touch. Some historians today still argue about these glowing substances. Were they natural minerals, or early chemistry beyond what we credit them with? The debates go in circles, the theories multiply. But for you, there's no debate. You saw the rock breathe with light. You saw your painted self glow. And now you can't stop wondering, what if the wall wasn't just a record of the past, but also a blueprint for your future? The night air tastes metallic, as though you've swallowed coins. Every whisper of the grass, every creak of the trees feels amplified, like the whole landscape is eavesdropping on your racing thoughts. You lie there, eyes wide open, staring at stars that look sharper, colder, more deliberate than they did the night before. Somewhere in that vast sky, you half expect the glowing figure from the cave to rearrange itself among the constellations, waving mockingly down at you. Your companions avoid your gaze. It's not hostility exactly. It's wariness, like you're carrying something contagious. One of them refuses to share food with you, muttering under their breath. Another insists you sit closer to the fire, as though flame alone can ward off whatever mark you've been given. You can't blame them. You don't really want to sit next to yourself either. When dawn smudges the sky pink, the leader comes for you. No words, just a gesture. Follow. You rise, legs stiff, stomach twisted. The others watch in silence. Not a single person tries to intervene. That silence is its own kind of verdict. The path leads away from the village, deeper into the forest where the undergrowth claws at your ankles. Birds call overhead, sharp and alien. At one point you think you hear something like laughter echoing among the trees, but when you glance back, the leader keeps walking, face unreadable. You stumble into a clearing where a circle of stones has been laid out. Not neat, not symmetrical, just an ancient ring, each rock taller than a person, pocked with lichen. You know instinctively that this place is older than the village, older than the painted cave, maybe even older than memory itself. The leader points to the center. You obey, stepping inside. The stones seem to lean toward you, crowding your vision, like giants bending close to inspect an insect. You feel smaller with each heartbeat, as if the earth itself is pressing down. Then the leader begins to speak. Not chanting, not humming this time, but speaking clearly, in words you almost understand. They talk about hunger, about the sky refusing to send rain, about spirits restless in the soil, about you, always circling back to you. You realize, slowly, that this isn't a ceremony for your benefit. It's a test, or worse, a gamble. You're standing here as some sort of offering, a bridge between the desperate and the divine. The leader hands you a bundle of dried herbs, brittle and fragrant. You hold them like a child clutching homework they don't understand. Then they strike a spark with flint, and suddenly the bundle is burning in your hands. You nearly drop it, but the leader snaps something sharp, a command, and you clutch it tighter. The smoke rises, curling around your face, stinging your eyes until tears blur the stone circle into a melting ring of shadows. And just when you think you'll choke, the wind shifts. The smoke funnels upward, twisting into a column that spirals into the sky. The leader's voice booms out, echoing strangely, louder than one person should sound. For a second, you swear the stones themselves are vibrating, humming in resonance. Your knees buckle. You press your palms to the dirt to steady yourself, but the ground feels hot, alive, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. You draw back sharply, terrified you'll sink straight into it. Then everything goes quiet. The fire in your hands gutters out, leaving only the charred husk of herbs. The wind stills. The forest holds its breath. The leader looks at you with an expression you can't name. Satisfaction? Fear? Both. And then nods. That's it. No explanation. No comfort. Just a nod and a gesture to leave. You stagger back to the village in silence, smoke still clinging to your hair. The others eye you nervously, as though you've returned from the other side of a river they'll never cross. That night you dream. You dream of stone circles spinning slowly in the sky, of painted figures stepping out of the walls, of your own hands glowing with tar-dark light. You wake with your heart thundering, sweat cold on your neck, unable to tell if the dream was a warning or a promise. Historians argue endlessly about these stone circles scattered across continents. Were they calendars? Temples? The world's first observatories? No one can quite agree, but in your bones you know the answer isn't just one thing. It's heavier, more dangerous, stitched through with dread and wonder. And now you're caught in it, whether you want to be or not. The night feels softer now, like a worn blanket thrown over the jagged edges of everything you've been through. The stars above no longer seem like knives, but like lanterns hung in an endless ceiling, swaying gently as though to a lullaby only the sky can hear. You breathe in, and for the first time in what feels like forever, the air doesn't taste of ash or fear. It's just night air, cool, quiet, forgiving. You sit by the fire alone. The others are near, but they keep their distance, voices low, their laughter like ripples across water you're not meant to touch. And yet, you don't feel the sting of exclusion tonight. Instead, you feel something subtler, release. Maybe the mark of the cave has already done its work, or maybe you've simply carried the burden long enough that your shoulders no longer know how to feel without it. The flames crackle and shift, painting the ground with restless shadows. You trace their shapes as if they're telling you secrets in a language you've almost learned. Your body is tired, but in that golden, pleasant way that invites sleep rather than fights it. Each blink is heavier than the last, and each breath stretches a little longer. You remember the stones, their weight pressing in, their silence humming with something far too big for words. That memory should frighten you, but tonight it doesn't. Instead, it feels like standing at the edge of a vast ocean. Yes, it's terrifying, but it's also beautiful. There's peace in knowing you don't have to cross it all in one step. The truth is, being human has always meant standing between hunger and hope, between fear and firelight. Every era had its own sharp edges, its own trials that made people whisper, "This must be the worst time." And maybe they were right. Maybe they're always right. But somehow you're still here, still breathing, still watching the stars stretch across the roof of the world. You close your eyes. Behind your lids, the cave's painted figures drift slowly, not threatening now, but patient, like guardians keeping watch. The circle of stones fades into a blur, softened by the rhythm of your heartbeat. The laughter of your companions fades too, until it's just a murmur, like wind through tall grass. Your body loosens, your mind drifts, the world dissolves into gentler colors. And as you sink further into this quiet, the story itself begins to dim, its edges softening until it becomes little more than a whisper against your ear, a promise that even in the hardest nights, rest will come. So let yourself float now, weightless. Let the firelight fade. Let the stars blur into a single glowing haze. Let every step of the journey fall away. You're safe here for this moment. You've survived every worst time, every impossible trial. And now, finally, you can rest.